What rules your weight loss journey? That is the subject for today. Hello and welcome to No Excuses. My name is Mary Fran. This is my place to talk about weight loss, life, fitness, being the most amazing person that I can be, and that includes a 150-pound weight loss effort. So what rules your weight loss journey? And I never really thought about this until a couple days ago when I received a comment from Sandy over at Let's Get Fit with Sandy. And I was reading her comment and it really hit me because she made a comment about not letting the scales rule us. The scales are not the ruler. And I sat back and I'm just like, but crazily enough, I kind of let the scales be the ruler because you see, I weigh myself every day and my feelings about my journey are dependent upon that stupid number on the scale. And that's okay that I weigh myself every day, but I need to stop letting that number dictate how I behave, how I feel, how I go about my life. And some of the ways that I find myself letting the scales rule is in the fact that I will look at my day and sometimes I'll have a really good day and I'm like, oh, I'm really, really low, so I can eat that potato chip. Or if I'm really, really high, I'll be like, oh, man, I messed up. I'm such a loser, blah, blah, blah. And I feel so defeated from it. And both of those behaviors are incorrect. And both of those behaviors are just not what we want in a weight loss journey. And sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. But I need to learn to stop letting that number rule my life. I can look at the number and look at it as a measurement because that is exactly what it is. It is a simple measurement to decide how I am doing on my weight loss journey. So in conjunction with that, I want to talk about other ways that we can measure our journey because the scales are not the end all be all. I've been saying for a long time that scales are stupid, and they really honestly are absolutely stupid. But I use them because I like that measurement to tell me how I'm doing. It is a real-time idea of exactly what was working. So as I'm on this journey, I'm starting to realize that the scales are not the ruler, but I need to actually be looking at lots of different types of measurements. And the first one I'm going to talk about beyond the scales is taking our measurements with a measuring tape. I have one right here. And this is so important because this is actually going to tell us a true idea of, are we losing inches? Are we losing anything? Or are we gaining? This is important. Now, consistently, I have been horrible about taking my measurements. I plan to do it and then I forget. And then I plan to do it and then I forget. And just recently, I decided to put it in my calendar. And if you see on my calendar is right here, and I actually wrote it in and I have it in there. And I actually did this and pre-wrote this in each month. So as soon as I go into March, I see that I have to do my measurements. And it worked fabulously because it's only March 4th and my measurements are done. So measurements are huge because you're going to be able to see if you are doing something good. The next thing I want to talk about is your clothes. How do your clothes fit? Are they loose and baggy? Are they skin tight? And if they're skin tight now, but then in 3 or 4 weeks, they're starting to feel a little baggy, then that's awesome. That means that you're doing what you need to be doing and you are shrinking. So watch how your clothes fit. Another way that you can measure your journey is by those non-scale victories. One of my huge victories recently was the fact that in November and December, I was really struggling. My legs were hurting. It was hurting to go on my nightly walks. It was hurting to go up the steps. It was hurting to stand up and sit down because they were just so achy. And I started this 2021 challenge for the year. And within 2 or 3 weeks, I started noticing my legs weren't hurting as much. Yeah, every once in a while I'd be on the bike and I'm like, oh, my knee hurts a little bit. And that's okay. But that all-encompassing pain kind of disappeared. That, my friends, is a huge non-scale victory. So we really need to be focusing on these non-scale victories to celebrate, because the non-scale victories are where it's at. Celebrate the fact that you were stressed out but you didn't go and eat the cheesecake. Celebrate that you actually were able to make good choices. Celebrate every little non-scale victory, because those victories are going to add up to the bigger victories that will count on the measurements, on the scales everywhere. The last measurement I'm going to talk about, and it's one of the biggest measurements, but it is one of the hardest ones to measure and to actually attain. And this is when you are walking down the street and you see someone and they look at you and go, "Oh my word, you've lost a lot of weight. Oh my word, you're getting skinny," whatever they say. And those are the ones that really touch. And those are the measurements that I value the most. More than the numbers on the scales, more than the tape measure, more than the 9-scale victories, I value those comments. Years ago, I was married, and we were in a store, and we had split up and gone our separate ways, and we were looking for each other to meet up to leave. And I saw my ex-husband there, and I was like, "Hey, Todd." And he kind of looked right at me, and then he kept looking away. And I kept saying, "Hey, hey, hey." And it took him a few minutes because he didn't recognize me. Even though he had been seeing me every day, his mind was just not there, and he was not thinking. And he finally looked at me and says, "Oh my word, I forgot that you lost so much weight." That happened years and years and years ago when I was at my lowest weight. And I'm still talking about how it was such a touching moment. My dad did the same thing. I was sitting on my parents' porch waiting for them to come home. My parents drove up and my dad's like, "Who's visiting?" And my mom started laughing because it was me. It was his daughter, and he did not recognize me. Those comments are the biggest measurement of your success. They're the hardest to get because some people don't always talk to you about it because they're afraid. I had one lady when I lost my weight, and she went to my mom a couple days later, and she goes, "Is Mary Fran sick because she lost a lot of weight?" Mom's like, No, she worked to lose that weight." And this lady was like, "Oh, I was afraid to bring it up in case it was some kind of sickness or something." So some people are afraid to talk about it, but those that do will be the most treasured comments and measurements of your entire journey. Don't let the scales rule you. I just gave you a bunch of different ways that you can measure your success. Cling to those other ways. Put them all together. Use them all as an identifier for how well you're doing. Don't let one measurement rule you, because if you do, you are going to be derailed like you wouldn't believe. No excuses.